This episode of the EV Resource Podcast is brought to you by Titan Auto and Tire. Titan has some of the very few independent auto repair shops in Central Virginia that are qualified to work on EVs and hybrids. And from hybrids to Hummers, they fix everything. For more information and to schedule an appointment for your vehicle, go to TitanAutoTire.com. Coming up this week, when you get up in the morning, what is it that your first thoughts are really, what is your purpose of really pushing to accomplish what you're looking to do?
I think that's always something that's been part of my life. I just really want to make a difference. I think very early on in my life, I realized that reality is really just the realization of other people's dreams and visions. I'm not going to build rockets in space. I'm not going to build AI. I'm not going to build medical or healthcare innovation. All I can do is, can I create a system of financial innovation that helps energy production and consumption be more sustainable in every sense of the word? And my thesis is, and so far it's corroborated by a lot of historical data, is society as a whole will be better off. So I've made that my personal mission statement.
Well, hello, friends, and welcome to episode 163 of the EV Resource Podcast. I'm Zach Hurst, and each week I bring you the latest EV news, information, and interviews with industry experts. My guest this week is Alex Liegl, co-founder and CEO of Tenet, and they're a company that is leading a revolution in the world of EV financing to make electric vehicles more accessible and more affordable to more people. Through innovations that deviate from traditional financial products, they elevate the importance of offering a holistic solution for purchasing and owning EVs. One of the most common hurdles to EV adoption is the financial barrier that prevents a lot of people from being able to afford these vehicles. So Alex, I want to welcome you to the EV Resource Podcast. I know we're going to have an awesome conversation and really dive into what you and Tenet are doing. But first, I want to ask you about how you transitioned from your background in finance to creating a startup that is working to address this issue.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Zach. Excited to be here and looking forward to our discussion. Quickly on myself, born and raised in Germany, went to Stanford for university, for college. I always kind of wanted to do something more entrepreneurial. So my sophomore year, I started a institutionally funded quant fund, trading volatility products, futures, options, et cetera. That was kind of like the first foray into finance. After school, worked at some hedge funds on the AI side and on the global macro side, a little bit of a combination of both. And then eventually just really wanted to do my own thing and capture the value of what I hopefully create, and hence startups. Obviously, you have that natural bias going to school on the West Coast where a lot of people do that. So you become really exposed and obviously also excited about the opportunities. And before Tenet, and it kind of led to Tenet in certain ways, I had a company that built high-performance computing data centers in the middle of nowhere in Texas. And it was actually the first one to stabilize energy grids, specifically because you have hundreds of megawatts in a single location, and you can turn them on and off or even regulate their power consumption with high granularity within seconds. And that's actually extremely valuable for grid operators, for utility companies, et cetera, because you cannot just unplug a city or a big factory, right? Like things break. It just doesn't work that way. But if you have a data center with computing power, if it's for Bitcoin, if it's for AI, et cetera, you can actually calibrate your energy consumption in terms of how much compute you use. And you drive a lot of alignment with renewable energy, specifically solar and wind, which ultimately has a lot of volatility in terms of their production profile. So I had that concluded until early 2021, and then it became very clear right away that there's a tremendous opportunity when it comes to renewable energy products, home electrification, and specifically electric vehicles. And started Tenet in March of 2021. And really the main insight for us was there's three big tailwinds that make it a no-brainer to innovate around electric vehicles, but hopefully then also be able to serve those customers a more integrated home electrification product suite. The first one is unprecedented government action, right? We've never been in a time where there's effectively a Manhattan Project for climate going on, with Inflation Reduction Act, with everybody in government, and both Republicans and Democrats alike, creating economic incentives to pull forward the development acceleration of decarbonizing technology. That's extremely powerful. And you need that type of incentive to make it happen. The second is these are all internet connected devices. You can build software layers on top of electric vehicles, on top of batteries, on top of solar. And especially EVs are batteries and computers on wheels. And primarily for gas cars, you wouldn't have been able to do anything with them. But now EVs are both internet connected devices and they're energy products. So you have two new vectors on which you can innovate when it comes to electric vehicles. And the third one is financial markets. And from my background, I was observing the one-way street that specifically capital markets is trending towards when it comes to offering better terms and allocating more capital towards decarbonizing investments. And lo and behold, the auto market is actually the largest, most mature, best understood securities market in the US. It's been around forever. It's a very safe asset class. Institutional investors know it very well. They're deeply invested in terms of funding auto loans, right? In general, it's around 700 billion of loan origination volume every year, 1.4 trillion outstanding. Focusing on electric vehicles, you really focus on the true positives of an attractive demographic of borrowers, high quality collateral, and you fulfill the mandate around decarbonization for pension, insurance funds, banks, et cetera, that really want to be able to dedicate more of their allocation to decarbonizing investments.
That is a way of looking at it that, as much as I've talked to so many people that are involved in so many different things in the EV and clean tech space, I've never had anybody talk about the opportunity that's available quite like that. And I love, I'm going to steal it from you if that's okay, but I love that you said it's kind of like the Manhattan Project, but for climate related things. Because for those that are familiar, of course, with what the Manhattan Project is, that really very simply just highlights the massive undertaking that is coming from many different areas that are all pushing, just trying to push this forward further. I mean, and to expand beyond that, I mean, it is a global push. Yep. I mean, not something that, your town is talking about or your state. This country and so many other countries are really shifting focus and, to your point, maybe the most important part, the money towards achieving, these goals with, of course, electric vehicles being a massive part of that. Normally, I don't dive right in, but I want to let the audience have a full understanding of exactly what Tenet does for the consumer in terms of being able to make EVs more affordable. So let's just dive right into it. What is Tenet? How can you kind of explain what it is that you all do? And then how can we really apply that to, as many people as possible to achieve the goals that have been set?
Yeah, absolutely. So the very simple mission that we have with our EV loan product is, can we levelize the cost of owning an electric vehicle with that of an equivalent gas car? How do we make it cheaper for somebody to buy, finance, and own an EV and incentivize them economically to make the switch from a gas car? Very importantly, we've observed there's a lot of businesses in the climate space that are primarily an appeal to ethics. And that worked for the early adopters, where people were interested in technology, or maybe they're environmentalists, or they just care deeply around adopting something that's new and novel. The majority of people needs to see dollar savings in their wallet every single month. Otherwise, they're not going to make the switch. So what that means in terms of the product is, how do we have a loan that we distribute directly, but also through partners, where we take advantage of all the things that make an EV unique? And we think of them as tax credits and rebates, the different residual value and data around that. And then thirdly, adjacent products like charger installation and bundle all of that into one easy digital loan product that anybody can understand. So, as a function of leveraging these three attributes, tax credits, residual value, home charger installation, we can actually deliver something that is meaningfully cheaper to the end customer. And it's because we think of ourselves not in terms of just differentiating ourselves regarding what is the APR that we can offer somebody. We do partner with sustainability focused financial institutions. They give us cheaper cost of capital, and we can pass that back to the consumer as lower interest rates. That's a no-brainer. That's table stakes. Frankly, that's boring. The additional innovation that we do is around the structuring of the loan product. How do we actually create something that is differentiated, not too differentiated that might create confusion with the end customer who's effectively used to a certain loan product, but differentiated enough to actually unlock the value that is trapped in the tax credit. So what we offer is very simple. It seems overly simple, but there's actually a lot of complexity behind or sort of under the hood, which is we offer people the opportunity to defer up to 20% of the price tag of their car. And currently 65% of our customers do that. What that means is they have until the end of the loan the opportunity to pay off that deferral. Specifically, the most selected deferral that we have is $7,500 because people are eligible for the federal tax credit. And instead of having to wait 12 months in order to get the economic benefit of that, they can take advantage of it right from the get-go with Tenet. And we provide resources and education afterwards through our knowledge center in terms of actually how to be able to get that tax credit and ultimately pay that off. We don't require you pay it off. You can refinance that amount. You can trade in your car, all that good stuff. We're very transparent in terms of how we interact with the customer and pride ourselves on the customer service we deliver. But very importantly, it's around how do we just simply unlock the economic value trapped in a tax credit and allow a purchaser to take advantage of it from day one.
That is staggering. And honestly, one of the reasons why I like to not do a lot of research into a company and how it works before talking to somebody in this way is I'm genuinely curious when I'm you've definitely piqued my interest because I've never heard. Let me take a step back. I've owned two EVs. Both were financed. I went to one was through Carvana, and they do their thing. I won't get into that. Yeah. The other was through local credit union, which great rate. Traditional lenders do not have a true understanding of electric vehicles in general, but then all the things that you were mentioning in terms of the tax credit and available rebates. Naturally, some states offer rebates, some states do not. And some people can qualify for a tax credit. Some vehicles can, or some cannot. But then the part that really caught my attention that you mentioned, but then didn't say anything else about it, was the charger cost and installation. To bundle all of that into the loan, that's huge, because one of the things that a lot of people are always talking about is, okay, yeah, you've got the car, but now you have to be out of pocket for, we'll say between $500 and $1,000 typically for, a 240 volt level 2 station at the house. So you guys are putting that into the loan, and I'm really excited.
I can tell you something even better about that.
Tell me more. So
usually the installation and the cost of the charger costs, I'd say on average between $1,000 and $2,500. That's really sort of the broader spectrum. And it depends a little bit on what's the electric panel that somebody has in their home, et cetera.
Yes.
Anybody can order a charger off of Amazon. The first thing that we do, the first pain point that we solve, is the stress and anxiety associated with how do I deal with permitting? How do I deal with finding a trusted installer? Mm-hmm. How do I get a fixed price point where they don't switch up on me afterwards and cross-sell me or upsell me additional stuff?
Sure.
So through our partner integrations, we can give somebody a very accurate understanding of the costs involved and seamlessly access information on their permitting, on where their house is, et cetera. And it's just integrated into our end-to-end digital loan flow if somebody is applying for a loan. That's the first problem that we solve, sort of the trust problem.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
then the second is the financial problem, which is, let's say in a typical situation, you get your EV, you're like, awesome, how do I charge the thing? So you get a charger separately. There's two ways you can pay for it, either separately cash out of pocket, or you try and finance it and you do it through a personal loan or through a home improvement loan, both of which are actually extremely expensive in terms of interest rates, right? An unsecured personal loan or a home improvement loan have very high interest rates. What we offer is we just have the installation cost and the charger hardware cost bundled into the auto loan that you have. That has two benefits. One, you have one simple payment for both your car and the charger installation. And the second benefit that actually most people don't realize is an auto loan with a mortgage is the lowest interest rate loan product that a consumer can get in the United States. So if you bundle it into your auto loan, ultimately the financing costs for the charger are vastly cheaper than if you would try and finance it separately through buy now, pay later, or through an installment loan or a home improvement loan. The APRs for that are at least going to be 2x. So we really pride ourselves in terms of a user experience that is fundamentally different and better. And Tenet is the only company in the country that offers the bundled EV plus charger product. And then two, also just offering the best in class savings, because we have a financial product that also lets the customer benefit from the lowest rate versus any other option.
Sure. So where do you guys operate? Because I know I was digging through the website a little bit, and
Mm.
FAQ it had mentioned 31 states, but then more by the end of 2022.
Yeah.
So
It might even be more now. It should be 35 states. Actually, good point. We got to update the FAQ. We generally cover roughly 90% of the market in the US. There's some states that are particularly small where they unfortunately have very stringent requirements around lender licenses, where, to give you a sense, we have to have a physical office or people present there employed, where candidly it hasn't yet made sense for us to become active. Generally, though, we operate roughly 90% market penetration, all the states that also see a lot of EV adoption, and still we are trying to become fully nationwide in the foreseeable future.
yeah, it makes sense to kind of roll out with the demand, go where your customers or potential customers are going to be. Now, you guys, the product that you've put together for this, I want to go back into the tax credit side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, the IRS has, at this point, clarified a lot in terms of what vehicles qualify. We've already known what people would qualify in terms of the income caps. Half the people in this country don't have a taxable burden. And actually, I would probably say more than half the people don't have a taxable burden of $7,500. In those cases, are you just kind of doing the rough calculation? Or, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that gets, I would imagine, fairly complicated, because in a certain tax year, people might not know what they would qualify for. How do you guys kind of operate within that kind of challenge?
Mm-hmm. So there's two things that are going on our end that are relevant for that. One, as part of our loan flow, and simply somebody going through the handful of steps involved in applying for a loan, we actually programmatically recommend to the customer deferral amounts that pull automatically from different APIs that we have with government resources, depending on where does somebody live, exactly what is their financial profile, et cetera, and shows them these are the tax credits and rebates that they specifically qualify for. We have both a tax credit calculator, and anybody on our website can look through that, and we're continuously iterating on that. But also, as part of our flow, we programmatically show to somebody, based on your specific data, these are the credits and rebates on a state level and on a federal level that you qualify for. The second thing And I cannot yet talk in too much detail around it, but we have something very interesting cooking with Tenet in general is the first company ever to work with government green banks when it comes to auto loans and specifically electric vehicle lending. And that's also publicly announced, for example, last year with New York Green Bank. What we are particularly excited about is programs for lower moderate income individuals. These are people, to your point, that do not have an income that allows for applying a tax credit for $7,500 because candidly, their income isn't high enough. Mm-hmm. So how do you create similar incentives for them that mimic the impact that a tax credit would have? Well, it's about us, Tenet, the company, doing innovation with financial institutions like government green banks, but also other types of private market banks, commercial banks, credit unions, et cetera, about dedicating their interest in allocating more resources to accelerate the adoption of renewable energy for lower moderate income into a loan product that decreases the cost associated with that, basically a credit enhancement for these types of LMI customers. So hopefully we'll have more to announce on that soon. But I'm particularly excited about it because right at the very, very beginning, you mentioned EVs are mainly a product for wealthier people nowadays. On average, the EV that we finance costs $55,000. That is actually a lot, right? So how do you make an EV and decarbonizing mobility for people that need it a lot more? Well, you have to get creative around leveraging financial institutions, building specific programs, aggregating proprietary data that creates the same type of impact. And that's what we're currently focused on. And hopefully we'll have more to share publicly in a couple of months.
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple months is not long to wait. I mean, that's right around the corner. So
it's a lifetime in startups, trust me.
Well, yes. I understand that very well, actually. But for the rest of us on the outside, I'm excited, and a couple months will fly by. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that because you guys have already innovated so much to be able to offer something that in many ways just takes a look at the actual, I want to say, pain or challenge that somebody might have that would prevent them from buying an electric vehicle. Do you guys have limits in terms of what vehicles or how expensive they get? Like, are there certain guidelines that are typically followed?
Yeah, so typically our lower bound is $15,000. And that actually, I would love to do lower priced cars as well, if possible. It's mainly a function of state lender license regulation, where if you go below that threshold, you run into usury laws and ultimately any type of, sort of lending that traditionally is regulated for companies that do payday loans and anything else that is, sort of very different from what we do. Sure. So specifically, that's mostly the lower bound. And with that, also, there's an upper bound in terms of what we finance, which isn't based on regulation, but more around at what point is it just too much concentration risk in a single customer. So currently we have, and please, for anyone listening, check rather the website than myself, which might be outdated. But it's typically $110,000 is the upper bound of what we do. We do have ultimately approvals for individuals that are maybe a little bit above that on a case-by-case basis, and we've automated that aspect. But generally, we're within the threshold of 15,000 to 110,000. And then it's more around what is the loan to value ratio of the car? Is somebody putting some money down? Generally, what's their credit history, et cetera? All these factors that then weigh into what is the amount that they could qualify for. Fortunately, again, the average amount that we do is roughly $55,000. So it's within a healthy margin of safety with either of these upper and lower bounds.
Sure. And I would imagine because of the loan to value, some of the higher priced EVs it's easier to add and bundle the other costs because the overall loan to value, there's a little bit more wiggle room versus something,
Exactly.
to your point, $15,000 or $20,000. Well, if somebody is spending $1,000 to install an EV charger on, and the car is $20,000, well, that's a much bigger percentage relationship there than, something that might be $55,000. So that I would imagine that plays a role or plays a part in things as well. I'm hoping that you can dive back into. I want to revisit the deferral and kind of talk more about exactly why you guys are doing that, what the benefit is to people, and then typically how somebody would use that tool.
Yeah. So the very, very simple insight is if you get an auto loan, it effectively assumes 100% depreciation of the car over the term of the loan.
Sure.
Because that's what it prices to. And the very, very simple insight we had with Tenet right at the beginning, and candidly, that's simply because I've done something adjacent in the past when it comes to building energy infrastructure on the grid, is electric vehicles are, as I mentioned, computers and batteries on wheels. And they have a different type of residual value where if the EV is at its end of life, the battery, for example, still actually holds value.
Yes.
People are now more and more waking up to that idea, which is great. The battery has two outcomes at the end of the day. It can either be repurposed for stationary storage applications, specifically for the grid, for home residential, etc., or it can be recycled. Both outcomes create dollar value. So the battery here establishes a lower bound on the residual value of the vehicle. And then two, and that data is also coming out more and more now, is the batteries are actually lasting a lot longer than people think. There's more data now on just EVs because of the lower maintenance, because of the better production. The over-the-air software upgrades are lasting a lot longer. The average lifetime of a car used to be around 8 years. For EVs, is expected to be around 14 years or more. People don't even know. There aren't any EVs that have reached their end of life. And the first EV, the Nissan Leaf, was created, 11 years ago? So it's been quite some time, actually. And as a function of that, we identified that how do we create a simple differentiation in a well-understood, very mature financial product, which is the auto loan, in order to help our customers take advantage of the residual value of the battery in the car. Hence, we offer the deferral. And the deferral, and that makes auto loans unique as well, they're mostly a non-discretionary purchase. It's what gets somebody to and from work. It's something that impacts their financial bottom line every single month because it's the second biggest purchase outside of their house. How do we let them benefit from, say, reducing their loan payment $150, $200 or more every single month by offering that deferral? And if they qualify for a tax credit, they can get that cash and pay off that deferral, and they don't even pay interest rate on the outstanding amount on what they've deferred once they pay it off, because it's no longer part of the loan principal. If they don't want to ever pay off that deferral, at the end of the loan term, they can refinance that amount with us, with anybody else. Or if they trade in their car or switch it in, very likely, because the deferral is only 20%, and cars on average, not even EVs, but gas cars, keep 40% plus of their value at the end of a typical loan term, somebody's going to be above water at that end. So they're, on average, are going to be able to benefit either way. And most importantly, and that's what the opportunity is for Tenet, banks, credit unions, et cetera, have no insight into collateral performance after loan funding. Wells Fargo gives you a loan. They're like, knock on wood, we're only going to get any data on what happens with the car if you wrap it around a tree, if you commit fraud, or if you pay off your loan. But right. Because Tenet has built now an EV Insights dashboard, and we have a bunch of other charging related opportunities that are on their way, we actually have proprietary data on how is this new asset class of EVs doing. And that in future will allow us to price more effectively the loan products that we offer to the end customer.
That is so smart. Like, I love that you guys just entered this going, one, there's got to be a better way. And then what opportunities are there within the traditional loan structure that are completely missed by banks, like especially the bigger banks? I'm assuming this. I mean, I'm really just making this up, but my suspicion would be that banks don't even want to change the way they offer loans because that's what they know. That's what they
Yeah.
do. And innovating and really going through any changes, especially for the larger a company is, typically only come due to market forces that they don't have any choice but to innovate, where that creates so much opportunity for a startup to come in and say, okay, I'm looking around, there's got to be a better way, and you guys have found it. I mean, I think it sounds like you guys have really looked at kind of the code and cracked it wide open, which is fantastic. I'm curious. I mean, you did mention that EVs have value even at the end of their useful life as transportation. Is Tenet involved in any way of connecting owners with ways of taking advantage of, perhaps, if they've got a car that, let's say, it's out of warranty, and now it happens very rarely, but it happens. Like, let's say the battery is dead and they don't want to replace that because they can't afford to. And from speaking from experience, I've owned two EVs. Both of them have had the batteries replaced. So it's very rare, but naturally for me, it's a little bit more in the forefront of my mind. Are you guys able to connect owners with either potentially recyclers that might purchase that battery, or, I know California, there are a few companies that have actually implemented a lot of EV batteries into the grid level storage solutions. Are you guys helping owners, kind of even just connecting them with various places that can help with that? Or, are you guys constantly looking for opportunities of being of more value to your customers?
So we don't do it yet. We are monitoring it, but we certainly actually have the competency to do it ourselves. So 2 years ago, at the very beginning of our Tenet journey, for shits and giggles, we actually took a bunch of end-of-life Tesla batteries and built a big rack out of them within a commercial container and built a stationary storage application for the grid. And that's because of what I've done in the past at my previous company, is what some of our team has done. It's a really interesting arbitrage opportunity, if you will, because there's a price for secondhand Tesla or EV batteries, and then there's a different price for a stationary storage battery. And for the stationary storage, it doesn't matter if it's an old EV battery or not, as long as it works with the cycles involved and the capacity and whatnot. So effectively, at some point, it makes sense for us to do this either through parties that we work with or ourselves. Candidly, in general, not just for us, but for the market itself, the volume is not meaningful enough yet to warrant us doing it.
Sure.
And we do have warranty providers that we work with, and as an extension, also maintenance and repairs and whatnot. But at some point, we might consider vertically integrating into circular economy of electric vehicle batteries and leveraging that. The reason that we haven't built Tenet to be that product in the first place, but chose with the financing, is just it's going to take probably another 8 to 10 years for there to be a meaningful amount of second life EV batteries out there. Currently, for the most of it, we would just be twiddling our thumbs right now. So it's much more exciting to build the market accelerator first, and then potentially benefit from also the circularity of it, and hopefully playing a meaningful part in decarbonizing energy grids, because that only is going to be achieved with batteries. We cannot physically produce new batteries in such a quantity to fully decarbonize energy grids. There has to be a repurposing of electric vehicle batteries involved to be a meaningful part of that. And hopefully we can play our role, if it's directly or indirectly.
That's That's interesting. That's definitely something to think about further. Um, we've been talking about cars, and naturally, that has been a huge focus for you. When it comes to addressing the total challenge of really the Manhattan Project we're working on, it's going to take a lot more than just transportation. Are you guys offering or exploring other potential products like financing for solar systems? Is that something that you guys are looking into? If you're able to answer that.
So the answer is yes. And let me take a step back and explain our calculus and sort of how we derived at the product roadmap that we have now. So the first mission statement that we have is, can we help people save money reducing their carbon footprint? So anything that we do is specifically designed to save money. That's why we don't also say, hey, power your car only with renewable energy, despite it being a virtual power purchase agreement. You're not physically getting delivered solar, et cetera, because those aren't necessarily money saving types of products and services. We focus on how do we unlock economic efficiencies by differentiating ourselves in terms of the structure of our products, the type of financial institutions that we partner with, and by us being a tech company and building software instead of a pen and paper process. So, and then secondly, from a market perspective, we think there's three layers. The first layer is OEMs and hardware manufacturers, both on the car level as well as on if you're a producer of batteries or HVAC or heat pumps or solar. The second layer is the installer layer. Somebody actually installs the thing and whatnot. The first one is very asset heavy. The second one is locally constrained because you're physically installing a thing. The third layer is what we do, which is the financial layer. We're the trusted financial platform for renewable energy and home electrification. And we have very interesting data that we get access to because of the nature of our product. The financial information from underwriting somebody's loan. We have the telematics data on the car by them connecting their vehicle to understand how are they tracking on their loan, on their insights, how much dollars are they saving, et cetera, from driving their EV. And then thirdly, their energy data. And we can give somebody data-driven recommendations of here are other home electrification products, solar, heat pump, battery, et cetera. And we're the only company that actually is able to combine both the financial and the energy data to give somebody a truly customized experience. And that's what we're working on right now. And we think really our vision is more to be a type of credit karma for renewable energy, if you will, really an entry point for somebody to say, I want to learn more around how can I reach my financial goals while also reaching my home electrification goals. And we leverage our partnerships with business partners and installers, with financial institutions, and ultimately the end customer, and have this three-sided platform. And our vision is to really be the financial fabric that powers the growth of the energy transition.
I am getting so excited hearing you say that because it's a piece of the puzzle that I didn't realize was missing in such a way. Typically when people that aren't in the finance world are thinking about it, they're going, okay, well, I need money. I'm going to go to the bank or the credit union or whatever else. And people don't think about the missing link there. I'm getting really excited about this because it's like, okay, I see what you guys have gotten onto here. So I know we're kind of running up against time, and I want to be respectful not only to your time, but also to the audience who are watching and listening to this. I've got a couple of questions specifically about you that I actually have decided I'm going to start asking everybody that I interview, but you're the first. So
Awesome.
Depending on how this goes, maybe that'll
Well,
shape
it can only go uphill from now for your
not.
future guests. It can only get better.
Oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. So just to kind of shed some light into who Alex is, what do you drive?
I don't even have a car, actually. I live in New York City. I bike a lot. I take the subway, take an Uber. My parents do have an electric Smart and an electric BMW, which I'm originally from Munich, Germany. So whenever I'm home, I get to take advantage of that. But if and when I do move out of New York, I'm surely going to get my own car. The boring answer is it would probably be a Tesla or Rivian. I think both of them are obviously always super cool, but there's also some really cool EVs coming out that are from sort of Mercedes and BMW and Audi. It's tough to choose.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly a lot more options now than there were even 3 to 5 years ago. No, New York City is one of the few places in the U.S. where you can do that. Not to get on a tangent, but it's the public transportation system is certainly supporting that
Yeah,
kind of lifestyle. So actually, using public transportation is very much congruent with the mission of being having a lower carbon footprint. So
exactly.
yeah, no, I applaud that because in many ways, you're walking the walk. Well, literally, maybe talking the talk. So the next question is somewhat of a play on words. I the first one was what do you drive, but I want to ask what drives you in terms of when you get up in the morning. What is it that your first thoughts are really? What is your purpose of really pushing to accomplish what you're looking to do?
I think that's always something that's been part of my life. I just really want to make a difference. I think very early on in my life, I realized that reality is really just the realization of other people's dreams and visions. And the building exists because somebody wanted it to exist there. A company exists because an entrepreneur wanted that thing to exist and the universe to effectively shape according to their vision. For me, there's obviously an aspect to I, as an individual, want to create a difference. And there's sort of as with any entrepreneur, a little bit of a narcissism aspect of that. But more importantly, I think is around, I think there's just a drive that I observe where there's a strong correlation between energy consumption globally and socioeconomic wealth. The more we can make energy consumption bigger in a sustainable fashion, the better off the entire planet and ultimately people are. I'm not going to build rockets in space. I'm not going to build AI. I'm not going to build medical or healthcare innovation. All I can do is can I create a system of financial innovation that helps energy production and consumption be more sustainable in every sense of the word. And my thesis is, and so far as corroborated by a lot of historical data, is society as a whole will be better off. So I've made that my personal mission statement.
Alex, I got to tell you, I don't know if it shows up. I got chills when you were saying that because that resonates so much with my personal mission. I mean, it's almost like you were speaking as if you were from my perspective as well. I mean, gosh, I'm getting emotional because like we need the type of people that are going to wake up and immediately have how can I make the world a better place at the forefront of their mind? Because there are definitely too many people that don't. And I think that's how we have really gotten into the mess that we're dealing with. I mean, take your pick, but specifically with climate change, for the solution to be the people that are thinking about others, I think that's got to be it. And I've talked with a lot of people in this space. I've talked with a lot of people outside of the clean tech and EV space. And I got to tell you, the ones that have failed were the ones that woke up and said, okay, what can the world do for me today? Because
Yep.
whether personally or in business, that just long term, I mean, it might work short term. You see people have short term success, but long term, they'll never make it if they're not constantly trying to solve the problems that other people are experiencing.
Yeah, I think that's really nice. I truly believe the world owes you nothing. You owe everything to the world, right? That's the way it works. I also want to highlight that when it comes to climate change and environmentalism, et cetera, there's a lot of degrowth movement nowadays, right? Politically instantiated. And I'm vehemently against that. I think a human being is never going to change away from being a consumer. The only way we can actually make this work is by allowing for more sustainable consumption, by building technology, not by reducing how much we consume. So that is how we're trying to build this thing. We're really trying to get people to consume more, but in a more sustainable way, in an economically sustainable way, in a energy slash carbon emission sustainable way, and hopefully make a difference.
We can get a little creative with this because there are inherent inefficiencies in the traditional model that are not beneficial, that don't need to be there. And by focusing that energy towards really encouraging consumerism in the right ways, in sustainable ways, where we're ending this conversation compared to my own thoughts in the very beginning, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I applaud what you guys are doing because it's definitely much more than a financial product that, is designed to work with electric vehicles. I mean, what you're talking about is so much more than that. And so anybody that happens to make it this far in, I definitely hope that they have grasped that. And in addition, my call to action to everybody would be to go to Tenet's webpage. It's tenet.com. So that's fairly easy to remember. You guys have social media as well. Are you on? Oh, I know you're on LinkedIn, Facebook,
Twitter,
anymore?
TikTok, Instagram, all of them. We have an amazing social media lead, and yeah, I think they also really just focus a lot on content that informs and educates. So if somebody just wants to learn more, right? Doesn't matter if somebody needs a loan or anything. If you just want to learn more about EVs, tax credits, all that good stuff, check out the knowledge center that we have on our website, and hopefully at some point we can win you over as a customer.
Sure. Well, I am excited to be in a position where I can share this with, thousands of people, which is just great because I don't take that lightly in any way, where I recognize that I've got a big loudspeaker, so it's like I want to use that in ways that introduces efforts like yours to the world so that more people can know about it. And I applaud that you said, if people want to learn, that's great. And you can start there. I would actually tell people that if it makes sense for themselves in their own, where they are financially with whatever vehicle they have, that they should absolutely make sure that you're one of the first people that they reach out to, or companies. I mean, they're not going to reach out to you personally.
Well, they should if they want to. I'm always speaking with customers, so absolutely.
Okay. I'll play it safe. We can have them reach out to Tenet through the webpage. I know there's a place that you can get pre-qualified, but I would absolutely encourage everybody to do that, just for the sake of mission. Not even, for everything else, but just to help support the mission that is shared, by so many people in this space. But then aside from that, just to spread the word. And I certainly feel very fortunate and humbled that I have the opportunity to spread the word.
Thanks so much.
This is, man, like seriously, it's what you're doing is so touching. And I have not reacted this way before. Like it's just really bizarre.
Thank you.
Now, it's so powerful.
That really means so a lot. Really, Zach. I'm extremely grateful for that reaction. You can't believe it means a lot. Really, so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Wow. That was unexpected. Okay. But no. Wow. That is huge. I honestly, I want everybody to know, because you guys are creating a revolution in that space. And I mean, God, it's cheesy, but it only takes a spark, right? Like we're going to have a raging inferno, I suspect, over the next few years, even decade, as more and more people, and we didn't even get into it, but like we're getting into that early majority, in terms of the adoption curve, where like the early adopters, we're already into it. We're the geeks and the tech people and the tree huggers and whatnot. Like we're already there. But the people that are buying EVs now, they know nothing about them. They know nothing about how they're fueled and the interactions. And because of the ignorance, to no fault of their own, because of that ignorance, we're we're going to have a lot of challenges just on the education front. But then being able to offer solutions like what you guys are doing, I see that being one of the main pillars to help lead people towards success with this. So
you speak exactly from my heart. That's exactly how we try and think of it. Truly.
I'm floored, honestly. Like I've got nothing else to say. So it's good that we're ending it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That really means a ton.
Well, all right, there you go. I actually had considered editing that part out, but I left it in because I really think the work that Tenet is doing, but then generally, I mean, to bring it back out, the work that a lot of people are doing, it's not just Alex and Tenet, of course, but the work that we're all doing together to further the adoption of electric vehicles, to make the world a better place, to leave a lasting mark on, humanity that will just push the human race forward. I don't think there's anything more significant and more important than striving to accomplish that goal. So I left it in there because I want all of you to really understand not only my own motivation, but certainly in this case that it is shared. This is something that there's a lot of people that are very passionate about making a difference in this world. So if you are one of them and you have ideas or there's something that you want to accomplish, I actually want to use this as a way to talk further about that. So if you've got an idea, whether it's a business idea or a volunteering idea or just something that is so meaningful to you, let me know. Send me an email, hello@ev-resource.com. Let's gather an army. Let's actually put together a massive group of people that can all be aligned and like Alex was saying with the Manhattan Project, like let's make this a big effort. If you are passionate about something, don't sit on it. Let me know. Email me. Maybe I can connect you to somebody. Maybe I can help myself. But at the end of the day, we are all in this together, and it's going to take all of us to really make a difference. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I know it kind of started off one way and then definitely ended in a very different place. Sometimes that's just the nature of conversations. And I actually really valued experiences like that. This was definitely the first time that I got a little choked up in talking with somebody, but that's how important this is. So I hope you enjoyed it. I know I really, really valued the conversation with Alex. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And I can't wait to share the next one with you guys. The next episode will be on the news because I do need to get caught up with all of that. But then after that, I've got an interview with Nick Casas of Enchanted Rock, where we're going to tackle some of the hurdles to EV fleet adoption and really explore that side of the EV world as well. So I'm excited to bring that one to you. That will be episode 165. The next episode 164, as I just mentioned, will be all about catching up on the latest news. So thanks so much for watching and listening, and I'll catch you all next time.